All right, thanks everyone for tuning in to Time to Talk Scaleups. My name is Richard Bell. I'm the Northwest editor here at Bdaily, and I'll be hosting this, which is the first instalment of our new webinar series to bring together leading authorities to discuss the various challenges facing the business world in 2016 and what's left of it and beyond. So today we've got three influencers from the Northwest who've come to weigh in on the emergent scale-up debate, basically. So with this particular conversation, there'll be a focus on the Northwest, but of course what we're discussing is applicable to other parts of the UK. You know, that's reflected in the audience today. And we hope to hold similar conversations, perhaps East Yorkshire, London in the near future. So, so you might ask, what exactly is a scale-up? Well, scale-ups are essentially high-growth small businesses that are sort of companies that many people believe could really help to drive growth. So it's believed that a relatively small number of fast-growing firms could actually be the real drivers of economic activity, potentially offering more in the way of gross value to the economy than startups. So to look at the actual data, according to a report by Octopus Investments, it's not all just about the Southeast. So 3 out of 5 of the UK scale-ups are actually based here in the Northwest. 1,900 of them are, so that's 1,900 of them here in the Northwest, so across Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Lancashire, Cheshire, Cumbria, and so on. Together they employ about 57,000 people and boast a collective turnover of about £7.4 billion. So with today's webinar, we're basically looking to explore the current scale-up landscape. So we want to look at what it takes for a startup to go from being a startup to a high-growth small business, and establish whether or not we could actually be doing more companies with real potential for growth. So our three speakers today are Susannah Lawson, who's the co-founder and director of Onefile, which is itself a scale-up. We've also got Tim Nichol, who's the dean of the Liverpool Business School, part of John Moores University, and we've also got Andy Devaney, who's the business growth manager for the Liverpool City Region LEP. So in terms of structure today, we're going to spend about 15 minutes or so with each speaker. But obviously, viewers, please do feel free to post questions throughout, and we'll put them to the speakers near the end. So from there, I'll just dive in straight in, really, and start with you, Susannah. So for joining us today. So could you give us just a brief intro about your business? Could you give us like a bit of a history of Onefile?
Yep, so I'm Susannah Lawson. I'm co-founder and director of Onefile Limited in Manchester. You'll have to excuse my voice today, I'm a little bit hoarse. So we started Onefile 11 years ago in our back bedroom in Manchester. We're a tech company and we developed cloud-based software for learning and development, which makes it far more efficient. So one of our primary sectors is the apprenticeship market, but we also sell into any employer or training provider that delivers competency-based vocational training. And we found that our customers are making huge efficiencies, such as up to between 400 and 1,000% returns on investment by using our software.
I see. So then, do you believe on the whole, is there enough support for companies that are trying to become scale-ups in today's business landscape? Do you believe that is the support there, or is there enough support there?
I think it's extremely difficult because even when you are a scale-up company, you're not aware that you are. We weren't aware until a couple of years ago that we were classed as a scale-up company or a high-growth company. We just thought we were two people that started a business in a back bedroom, and in the last few years we've seen a 300% increase in turnover, and our staff in the last 4 years have gone from 21 staff to nearly 80. We didn't realise that made us a high growth scale up company. We just thought we were somebody going on our way, building our business. Yeah. I don't think right at the beginning when you're starting a business that there is enough differentiation between the people that have the vision and the want and the desire to become a high growth scale up business, and those that just want to remain a very small lifestyle business, because the challenges that you experience as a scale-up business are completely different to those as a one-man band or 5-10 staff in a very small office. So when I was going on, I thought, well, to begin with, it was just the two of us, like I said, in our bedroom, starting on the business. And it took a couple of years before we even left there, apart from to see clients, because you're so busy in the day-to-day. You're not networking, you don't take time out to go on courses or to develop yourself. You're just trying to build enough revenue to keep yourself afloat, basically. And I do think when you do leave that landscape and you go out into the wide world to network, it would be very good for people to differentiate between lifestyle businesses and those that have the desire to become a scale-up. Because like I say, when you're talking to people, you're thinking, you're not really experiencing the same challenges that I'm experiencing. Am I doing something wrong here? Why are you obviously finding the things that I'm finding difficult easy? But they're just not mentioning them because it's not a problem to them. Obviously, if you are a childminder or a hairdresser or an electrician just working for yourself, you're not going to have the recruitment issues that we've got when we're trying to hire 10 people straight away, 20 people straight away. And of course, I didn't sort of make that link myself, that was the reason why we were experiencing those problems. So I do think it would be better if when people are offering support, they ask, what kind of business do you want to be? Where do you want to go with this in 3, 5, 10 years time? I
see, yeah. So it's more a task of sort of identifying the goals and offering the appropriate support. So with that in mind, looking at Bdaily's wider investigation so far up to this point, basically a lot of the respondents have fed back that the current support is weighted more towards startups than scale-ups. So do you think we should be doing more to focus on the scale-ups then, as opposed to sort of looking at the businesses where they're beginning, and should we be looking at businesses a little bit further along the line?
I think absolutely. I mean, absolutely, when you're a startup, you need support, you need looking after, you need some advice, you need some guidance and mentoring. But then you can't just be left to fend for yourself, because the challenges you experience at every step along the way, they're all encompassing, they're all, and you don't have anybody higher than you to go to as an owner of a business. There's nobody above you. If you work for a large corporation, there's always a manager above you or people with more experience above you to go and ask for advice. It's an extremely lonely place being a business owner. I mean, we're fortunate enough, my husband and I, to have each other, but we don't know any better than what we know. We need somebody there that's been there, done that, or has supported other people to be there and go there. So although, yes, absolutely, startups need support, the people further along the way that then want to take that business to the next level need extra support. And that extra support is completely different to the support you need as a startup.
Yeah. So you talked before about, obviously, you've unlocked, you said 300% turnover growth. Despite facing a lot of unique challenges, to a business in the position that yours was in. So what exactly, what funding and support challenges did you face in the, did you say you founded 11 years ago? So in that stretch of time, what specific funding and support obstacles have you had to overcome?
Well, we've funded everything organically, so we've just funded everything through our retained profit. So we've not personally experienced any funding challenges, but support challenges. We never felt that anybody came to us to say, right, you're a startup or you're at this stage in your business, what support do you need? We found that it happened by chance when I went out and started going on the odd course about sales, because I didn't know, I was the salesperson for the business. I'd never done sales in my life. I didn't know what I was doing properly. And then it was only through talking to people there that they said, oh, did you know there's a growth hub, or did you know there's this funding? And one of the biggest drivers for us was we actually went into an incubation. It was run by the University of Manchester at the time. And they were looking for high growth potential tech companies that they could incubate as startups. I think we were about 3 or 4 years in at this point, though, to help them achieve what they wanted to achieve. And I do sometimes question if we hadn't have gone into there, because we'd just gone into, we needed to start recruiting our first members of staff. And if we were looking at office space, and if we'd just gone into a commercial office space with lots of other businesses that wasn't classed as an incubation, and everybody just kept their head down, nobody offered advice, nobody was there to sort of be friendly and be a sort of a open ear for you to talk to, whether we would have achieved what we've achieved. Because we were fortunate to be accepted on the incubation, it's like incubating a newborn premature baby. You've got a much better chance of survival by being around all the similar-minded high-tech growth companies. And also they offered mentors, they offered subsidized training packages that we could go on to, because again, especially when you're a startup, if somebody comes to you and says, well, it's a £500 course, that's a lot of money to go to. Obviously now we have the money, we see the investment of it, and you look back and go, well, yeah, why wouldn't you? But when you haven't got the cash flow to be able to do that, and it's, do you pay yourself £500 or do you go on a course to, you know, to better it? It's a very, very difficult decision to make. So, and then just from there, we've been very, very fortunate to come across support and programs that are subsidized, or that we have invested in ourselves, but they haven't just left us at each stage, they've supported us ongoing. So for example, I'm going to talk about the 10,000 small businesses with Goldman Sachs. That's a fully funded program with Goldman Sachs for high growth companies, or companies that they see high growth potential in. And once you've gone through the 6-month program, they don't just drop you and move on to the next ones. They keep with you on your journey, and they'll find you people to support you, and the mentors and the peers there that you meet are the ones that keep you going.
Yeah. So with all that in mind then, and with your experience with Onefile, what advice would you have for any other SMEs or any other startups, sorry, in the Northwest that were looking to hit the scale criteria? What advice would you have for those business owners? Okay,
well, there's some practical advice. So I would advise to get a good accountant. The first accountant that we had for far too long, he was in a very small practice in a very small village in Greater Manchester. I bet if I asked him what is a high growth company or a scale up company, he probably couldn't have defined it himself. He used to come once a year to talk to us, and he'd be amazed at our figures and how we'd grown. And I should have been a little bit suspicious then that he probably wasn't going to take us to the next level, because he was saying none of my other customers or clients are being like you guys. So we obviously didn't fit into his box. So when we could, we've got an amazing accountants now who have other scale-up companies as part of their client base, as well as big organizations, and they thoroughly understand the challenges that we face, and they actually support us. And they come out 3 or 4 times a year, the senior partners, to sit down and say, right, what's your strategy for the next 3 years? Let's work back. Let's talk about the resources that you're going to need. Can you fund those? Do you need some support with that? And obviously things like research and development tax, or being able to put a director's report on your accounts. You know, our accountant, I went to him and said, right, we want to do these things. And he wasn't even aware of them, when he should have been advising us that these are ways of, you know, working your books and making them work for you. Another bit of advice would be to contact your local enterprise partnerships to see if there are any growth hubs. And we have a great growth hub in Manchester that they do have funding for high growth scale ups to build their senior management team, because that again is a massive challenge in high growth companies. I mentioned them before, the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses. You'll have to be a certain size with a certain number of staff, but they have been phenomenal at supporting nearly 1,000 scale-up businesses or companies that have the vision to become scale-up businesses within the UK. As soon as you can as well, try and network with other scale-up owners, because again, the challenges that you're facing are not the same as other SMEs, and you need to be able to talk about them. And again, your Growth Hub or Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses can support you in finding those networks. And I think finally, if you want to be a true scale up, you have to take time out of your business. Like I said, we probably spent the first 3 or 4 years of our business with our head down, just trying to make the revenue. And to be honest, at the end of the year, it was a fluke whether we did it or not. There was no strategy there. It was like, right, get our head down, let's work really hard and let's get there. To be the scale up that we want to continue being the scale up that we are, we need to look ahead. We need to look to 3 to 5 years, and we need to look, right, where do we want to be? What revenue do we want? What profit margins do we want? How many staff is it going to take us to get there? In what sectors do we have to look out of our own marketplace? And the only way you can do that is to be out of your business, to not be sat in the office dealing with the day-to-day firefighting. You need to be out somewhere different, in a different headspace, to think about the future of your business. You can't do it when the phone's going in the office or a staff member's coming to ask you about something, about a client or about an account. You need to be out, and that's all you're going to be focusing on. So to put time in your diary, whether it's, some people can do it every week, that's great, once a month, once every 2 months, but put that time aside with an agenda of what you want to achieve in that time out.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Thanks, Susannah.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to Andy, Liverpool City Region Lep. So, Andy, can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, grill. All right, Andy, well, just thanks for joining us. And also, so I'd just like to ask, could you give us a bit of a brief intro into your background and your position currently at the Lep?
Well, my current position is the Business Growth Programme Manager at the Liverpool City Region Lep. So what that really means is we look after the City Region Growth Hub and several growth programmes as well, funded through various programmes, ERDF, etc. So we run 4 or 5 programmes from the Lep, and we also manage the Growth Hub. Our Growth Hub model is slightly different to Manchester's and others in that we use the expertise already on the ground. So we have a Growth Hub kind of representative in each of the 6 local authority areas of the city region. And so there's somewhere for each business, no matter where they are, no matter which sector, no matter their size, a one-stop shop for them to go to get the advice, to be brokered into that advice, skills, advice, access to finance. That's there on the ground. So that's the big thing that we're kind of working towards at the moment.
I see. So do you feel like there is enough support at the moment for companies trying to scale up? You know, Susannah talked about how there's the issue of, you know, some businesses not being aware of the support that is available if there is any at all. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Susannah. I think it is difficult for businesses to understand what's out there. Our Growth Hub launched officially in May of this year. And we're getting some good traction on that, but it's difficult to get each individual business to understand what's available. We don't have huge marketing budgets. We don't have the capability to reach, you know, all the thousands of businesses on our path. So it takes some time to get that traction, to get the message out there what's available. What we need and what we have, luckily, is the support of our businesses, of our members organisations, chambers, federations of small businesses, etc., to get that message out to businesses, to startups, that there is support out there to help them to grow. So there can always be more, and we're always listening. And I know our colleagues in Manchester are the same. We're always listening from businesses about what we can do to improve our service. The other thing around startups is the governments are fully behind this agenda now. We have a lot of conversations with Biz as was, who are fully behind the Scale-Up agenda, who are pushing it with ministers. So I think the future is good for Scaleups. I think it's certainly towards the top of the agenda for us as a Lep and a Growth Hub, certainly for government as well.
Yeah. So you're saying obviously Scaleups is on the government's agenda then. So do you think how would that sit with the sort of the existing support for startups? You know, if the government did start to weigh more towards Scaleups, could that be to the detriment of people who are?
Well, I think in terms of startups, I think the question around current support being weighted towards startups, I think it really depends on who you ask. And what we found in some of our research is that there is funding for startups for sure and the support. But where there is a gap is in the high growth startups. So for those businesses who can start and grow quickly, that's where there's a gap that we're trying to plug at the moment. As Susannah said, there is some support which is needed for those lifestyle businesses, but there is, we think, a bit of a gap there for those startups that can grow quickly. So that's where we'll be putting some of our focus over the next year or so. But it's difficult for government, it's difficult for Leps and Growth Hub because we can't concentrate on just one element. We obviously have to, we have a business deficit we have to address as well. So we have to look at startups and growth businesses, ideally to bring those together. So there's never going to be a perfect solution, but I think with that government buy-in, we're getting there.
So how do you think then? How does the business landscape for Scaleups in Liverpool compared to Manchester? Do you think at the moment then it's you know, is Liverpool really encouraging this? Is it? But like the region.
Yeah, I think if you look at the numbers, I mean, I was surprised myself, to be honest, when we saw the numbers of Scaleups in the Liverpool City region. It's actually pretty high. Sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me. You may. And as I say, that we as a Lep, particularly in the last year or so, have been really behind this agenda. We've run a programme for 3 years called the New Markets Programme, which is focused entirely on high growth SMEs. That programme is designed to give businesses up to 35% of funds towards the cost of certain activities that can help them to grow. That could be professional services, it could be marketing, it could be implementing new systems, that type of thing, and that's designed explicitly at those high growth businesses. So we've put over £2 million into that over the last couple of years, and continued. That programme will run for another 2. So it's certainly something that is very high up on our agenda. It needs to be, as you said, for that economic growth.
That particular programme, what you've talked about, Andy, did you say new markets? New
markets programme.
Yeah, I mean, has that had interaction from businesses from any particular sector, showing up more than others in the city region?
No, not particularly. Obviously, it has to be. That's a European funded programme, so it has to be exclusively business to business. So that's not aimed at the lifestyle businesses. That is much more at both growth. But we're finding across the board that we're getting some buy into that. We've supported, I think it's just under 200 businesses through it over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And as I say, in terms of the type of support, there's been a lot of specific types of marketing. There's been a lot of new systems. The goal is really to help those businesses to either access supply chains or launch new products or enter the new markets abroad or what it may be. So it's a very focused programme. As long as we can legally fund it and we're not breaking any of those European procurement rules, then we'll do our damnedest to support as many as we can.
I see. Brilliant. So just to round off that point then, so what can you just sort of walk us through specifically what is the Liverpool City Region LEP doing to boost the existing businesses in the city region and allow more of them from the startup stage to the scale up stage? What's on offer at the moment then?
At the moment, as I say, the Growth Hub is the place to start. If you're any business in the Liverpool City region, the place to start is the Growth Hub. The easiest way to do that is to go to localgrowthhub.com. Very simple, easy to remember. That's your starting point, and from there you can find what you need, be it online or face to face or whatever you want as a business. The Growth Hub is then also bringing together all other support across the city region, whether that's delivered through the public sector or the commercial sector, and bringing that under that umbrella, so it's easier for businesses to just go through that one place for skills, for finance, for advice, for any type of support. That's more difficult than you think to pull off, and there's so many different options available. But making it simple for businesses is the key for us at the moment. So within that, there's lots of different programs from startup right the way through to the high growth process. So no matter what stage you're at, there's a place, there is support for you in that process. And whether you're a startup, whether you're at that, you know what you want, you're looking to grow, or somewhere in between, there is something there for you. So that's the key for us. At the moment, we're working on the commissions for the single investment fund, which is the fund that's coming through the Evolution deal. And again, that's going to be highly focused on filling those gaps that we've identified: scale ups, high growth starts, access to specific types of finance for export and for growth. All of these things we've identified and we'll be getting support over the next 2 to 3 years. So we're on the agenda at the moment. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Andy, for talking to us. So we'll just move on to Tim. Tim has had issues coming in, so we've actually got Sarah, who's the MD of Bdaily, will contribute to the discussion. So I think, Sarah, you. I'll just pass over then.
Hi. So yeah, I believe Tim's had a few issues logging in, so I thought we'd join the conversation. Just as by means of an intro, I'm the managing director of Bdaily, and an online business news platform, delivering business news on a regional basis to the SME community. Work with starting a series on Scaleup, and our editorial team are currently running that. And we're really sort of exploring this debate and looking at where we feel like there's gaps in funding and where we think maybe businesses really need the support. And it was interesting to hear what Susannah said earlier on about the differences between startup and scale up. From our point of view, we've actually got an investor in the business. So from a point of view of the financial stuff, we're pretty well sorted. But what's tricky is getting external support and advice. I think the advice is when you're in the business, you don't always recognise where you need to go moving forward, and that's hard. Where the support is, we've got really strong links. I think we're pretty proactive because of the nature of the people in our business. We've a business advisor, and we've got people who are familiar with business support within the business. We're quite proactive in going out there and speaking to the right people. But I know that that's not always the case, and especially with small businesses where there's not so many people. You have to work on the business, you have to do the day-to-day. And I know, you know, Scaleups not necessarily a reflection of the size of the organisation. You know, there can be in the organisation than a massive corporate business, and there's the struggle to take the time out to go and get advice or take some time out to work outside of the business and look at how to move it forward. You guys mentioned you know, the local enterprise agencies and the, you know, the Growth Hub, and we've got a number of organisations up in the northeast but it's tricky. I think there's a lot of support for startup, but it's actually being able to take a business from startup stage to the next level. That's you know, that's difficult, and often the funding runs out before business is able to prove its model to get through the really tough times. And you know, that's where it's tricky.
Yeah, I'm ready to knock on it. Yeah. Well, thanks for talking today, Sarah. I mean, would you like to answer some of the questions?
If you want to ask, yeah.
Well, I think you've already covered obviously a lot about the northeast scale-up landscape. But do you think is there enough support at the moment for scale-ups in the northeast?
I think certainly the research has shown that people aren't even aware of the definition of scale-up, and people haven't they're not even aware that they're, you know, we've been delving into the research, and we're slightly more aware of what the difference is between the two. But there has been a big focus over the last few years around innovation and helping businesses start. And I think there was certainly a period of time when there was a lot of people being made redundant and start new businesses up, because that was kind of a logical step for them to business or look at a new means of being innovative and starting up, and there was funding available for that. And I think that there probably has been over the last few years a gap with supporting businesses that are at the scale-up stage or just before the scale-up point, where, you know, certainly investment would have been appropriate, and that higher end, more expert advice being readily available would be really useful. But I do feel like businesses we don't need to turn the tap off investing and supporting startup, because they're kind of the longer term. You know, we still need to nurture innovation and people trying things. So that's a personal opinion. I think there needs to be maybe possibly more balance, but we certainly need to look at these scale-up businesses and how they can impact our economy, and how we make sure that they give us the best return on investment possible for public spend.
And what's your take on, obviously, Susannah's advice for a growing business was obviously to first and foremost get a good accountant, one with experience of high-growth businesses, get out and about, and not just sort of, you know, not necessarily focus on revenue as important as that is early on. Is there anything you'd add to that, or what's your take on that?
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. That having the right people around you is critical. Like, we need to be surrounding ourselves with people with the skills and experience that we maybe don't have, because once you've been running a business, you can go, well, I wouldn't do that again. Or as certainly with Bdaily, we've tried and tested a lot of stuff over the 4 years that we've had the business, and you know, we're great believers that if our readers don't have an appetite for something, or our commercial clients don't have an appetite for something, then let's not try and force them to want it. So we test things quickly, but you can learn a lot from experience, but there are lots of people out there who've had experience or who just know more things about. So it's great to be able to get that advice. The digital then world is a big thing that changes so quickly, and I know that from our point of view, we're obviously a digital business, and so we have brilliant staff, but we also, you know, we speak to people who've ran businesses and who are doing things that we haven't done. So I think getting out, speaking, sharing. For us, it's about being generous with our time and hopefully engaging with people so they're generous with us. It's easier said than done, though. It is.
Yeah. We'll move on now to our Q&A. Just I've had a couple of questions come in during the course of the talk. So I've got a question here for Sarah. They said, hi Sarah, a lot of our respondents have cited a lack of media coverage as a blocker to growth and awareness of their brands. Can you help to popularise businesses?
I think, yeah, a lot of people are scared of approaching sort of media outlets, media, you know, and press, especially. It takes time and resource. You need to be, it's part of the marketing strategy, you know, approaching the likes of Bdaily and sharing your stories with us is something that is, you know, it's great because it's great for, it's not just about promoting your services, it's about building a presence. It's also about engaging with potential investors or stakeholders or people for your board, your future board. People are too short-sighted. They think about the here and now. We all do it. We think about the immediacy of day-to-day. And I actually think, you know, the marketing activity and press coverage and promoting what you do and building trust with a readership is, especially if it's B2B. I mean, for us, it could be any press, but I think it's integral and people want to hear people's stories. Like we looked at I think there's 600 up in the Northeast Scaleups, around 600, and we looked at the list and it was like, wow, so there was some surprises on there. And that's because there's a lot of these businesses are being very modest, not sharing their stories and not getting the word out there. So I think there's definitely more can be done. And my advice would be don't be afraid to get in touch, and that might be outsourcing and having to spend a little bit of money on someone who can manage that element of the business for you. But I think, you know, it's definitely a critical part of any marketing strategy for a business moving forward. And when I say marketing strategy, I mean brand management. I mean, it's not just about promoting and selling a product.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. We've got another question here that I'd like to put to both Susannah and Andy. So Susannah, obviously Britain at the moment is in the process of, obviously, you know, it's all over the papers, withdrawing from the EU. It's you know, it seems to be getting well underway. Do you believe that process could be harmful for Britain's high growth businesses? Like how do you foresee that impacting Scaleups?
Yeah, I mean, I now have a lot of peers and good friends who are owners of Scaleups, and it has hit a lot of them hard. The exchange rate, for those that import parts or materials, they're seeing a massive hit on their profits. Currently, I had a very good friend that's had to acquire quite a large amount of dollars up front because she was worried that if it fell even further, she would have no profit left whatsoever. And then obviously what's just happened in the States the other week. I was just out there last week with business, and you know, everything's more expensive now. I don't think it will stop Scaleups because I think the entrepreneur will find a way around it, and they'll find a different route or a different method of dealing with the issue, and it won't stop them because there's always an opportunity. But I do think it you know, ours definitely remain, and nearly everyone, I think all bar one of my business friends was remain. I think there is going to be very hard times ahead, and I think some people potentially have been quite short-sighted and about their own personal thoughts, and you know, some of this, some of the non-scale-up companies I know have already had to let people go, unfortunately, the smaller businesses, because they've already seen a massive hit on their profits. So it is going to be a tricky time ahead, and obviously a very interesting time, but I do think that scale-up owners will be scale-up owners, and they'll find a way around it. They'll weather the ship, and they'll keep going, and they'll find another way.
Oh, thanks for that. And Andy, similar question for you then. What's the feeling in the LEP at the moment? I mean, is there any concern over how Britain's withdrawal from the European Union could affect some of our high growth small businesses?
Excuse me, there's a bit of beep in here. I wouldn't say concern, but there's certainly uncertainty, and I think all we're trying to do at the moment is deal in facts and keep it in perspective. I think most of our business base is being fairly positive about the whole thing. I think although the Lower Cities region was a fairly solid Remain vote in terms of the overall vote, and there is, I agree with Susannah in terms of there is massive uncertainty, but there is also opportunities there. Some of our export businesses have obviously done well out of it in the short term. So all we're doing is trying to keep the facts in check, trying to be raising awareness, and not really speculating on too much. Obviously, it's a difficult position for us to be in without all of the facts. So yes, uncertainty, potential difficulties for some businesses, but opportunities for others. It's not going to go away, so we have to deal with it. What happens with Article 50, whatever, over the next 2 to 3 years, we just have to wait and see. The government have given us some comfort in terms of the EU structural funds and how that affects us and businesses. So we know that that's there in place for the next couple of years at least, and we just keep consulting with our businesses, with our chambers, with our membership bodies, to see where we stand and keep check on it.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Cheers. I've just got one more question for you, Andy. We've been asked which sectors are performing best at present in the Liverpool City region. Are the highest growth firms found in similar industries?
No, I don't think so. I think we have some key growth sectors that we focus on in the LCR. So advanced manufacturing, support, visitor economy, health and life science, creative and digital, of course, all of those things. But we're seeing scale ups across all of those, and then others as well. We have businesses that do really bespoke and unique things that you'd struggle to pin them into one specific sector. I think that's the beauty of it, and we can concentrate on certain things. But a really good business, a real good scale-up business, I think, as Susannah said, they find a way to put themselves where the business is. So I don't think we've had any really pigeonholed. Most of our scale-ups are in one specific sector, but we are seeing a good spread. Obviously, our growth sectors are important to us, and we covered a lot of ground there. So we've got, through our creative and digital, we've got I don't know how much you're aware of the Baltic creative and digital in Liverpool, and our life science sector is obviously on the up as well. So there's lots of things that we're able to concentrate on, while at the same time working with our startup people to try and turn some of those startups into scale-ups in a short space of time.
Oh, thanks, Andy. And last question then for Susannah. So what advice would you give to a scale-up business that's worried about taking on its first staff? So a scale-up business that's specifically looking to grow the workforce.
I think you've got to do it, because it got to the point where myself and my husband were working 80 hours a week each, and we were just, we spent too long not doing it. Let's wait until a little bit more money comes in, and you don't need the full salary up front. It's over 12 months, so there are ways and means of finding the money in that year. But what that will do is it will enable you as the owners and the leaders of the business to then look further ahead and see what it is that you need to do to bring more revenue in and be more strategic about it. And I think, just following on from what was said earlier, was there, when we first took on our first, quite a few staff members, you take on people that are going to replace tasks that you want to unburden. So some of the administrative stuff, answering the phone, dealing with certain suppliers, etc. But then as you grow, as Sarah said, you need to take on the people that are better than you then. And that becomes a real shift in psychology, because obviously being the leader of the business, you want to be the one that knows everything best, and you think you need to do this and you need to be able to do it and show everyone how to do it. But you can't do everything better than other people. So as I said, when I first went, I picked up sales. I wasn't a salesperson. I did the marketing. I'd never done any marketing in my life. I came from the NHS. You know, so you end up taking on a marketing person who's got that expertise. You end up taking on a bookkeeper, or, you know, so somebody that's got that expertise. But yeah, your first member of staff, you'll spend longer doing it than you should do. But when you take it on, you'll wonder how you ever did without them. And then you'll be looking to the next one and the one after that. So just do it.
Yeah, just a matter of just jumping in the deep end.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Well, that's all we've really got time for now. I mean, it's a shame that Tim couldn't join us and bring the expertise of the Liverpool Business School with him, but you know, we'll have to see what happens in the future. But I'd just like to thank the two of you and Sarah as well for joining us today. Brought some really interesting points to the table, and you know, it's a lot for us to mull over as we continue to investigate the impact of Scaleups on the economy. So we're going to be sending out some emails in the coming days regarding you know, future webinar opportunities. So if anyone, you know, would like to get involved, we'd just like to say, you know, just get in touch with the Bdaily commercial team. But from everyone here at Bdaily, I'd like to just say thanks a lot for getting involved. So yeah, thanks very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.